Cheers to you, my friend. Welcome to the Cynthia Linox Show. I am your host, Cynthia Linox. Today, we are going to unpack another episode of the journey of self-discovery. And I'm always hoping that every time I connect with you, every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on this stream. And if you can't make it Thursday at 2 p.m., then 24/7 you can access the show at on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But every time I come to you on Thursday, I am hoping that you have made great strides in your journey, that you are coming to the place where you get to know who you are and you're coming into your true authentic self, living your life organically and not performatively. It's one or the other. Organic means that you are living in your true authentic self and being who you are uncompromisingly, not afraid, confident, assertive, knowing who you are, and being bold in everything that you do, as opposed to being performative, which is living according to rules, living according to regulations and laws and things of that nature, living according to a script. You know, culturally, there's a script that tells us what is acceptable as a collective in society, as opposed to you having the opportunity or you being who you are. You try to do something out of the norm and it's frowned upon. Why? Because the collective sort of sets the standard as to what's acceptable in our social circle or not. And for me personally, I frown on that. I frowned on traditional behaviors that no longer serves me, and just doing things out of on autopilot, out of the status quo. That's the way that's the way we've always done it, and that's the way we'll continue to do it. No, I believe in being innovative, in being curious, in exploring, in being adventurous, in learning and opening my mind to new things, new ideas, new cultures, new ways of doing things. I allow myself that freedom because that represents, for me, it represents growth. I always say that you need to figure out what works for you and do that, because when you do that, when you discover what works for you and you walk in that alignment, that's where your joy, your peace, and the freedom lies. Why? Because you are coming back to your original self. You're not trying to, again, follow the crowd, go along to get along, or trying to fit in. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself. I have learned that you have to position yourself and set yourself in places where you are celebrated, not places where you are tolerated. It doesn't matter what circle, whether it's your family, friends, social, work, whatever. If you are not celebrated, and when I mean celebrated, I don't mean necessarily that you're the center of attention. I mean that you fit in. You are comfortable with the people that are around you. You have something in common. You can share, and you are enjoying each other's company, whether it's two or three or a whole group of people that you feel your best and you're comfortable. It's always about you. I'm telling you, this journey is about you. It's me, myself, and I. And you have to approach it with that mindset unapologetically. Don't make excuses. Don't try to justify or modify what you know. It is about you. And think of it this way, the best version of yourself that you become, that's the best that you'll be able to give to your friends and family and your spouse and your children and your partner. Why? Because it's the best of you. And at the same time, you'll be able to look at people with different lens. You look at them and you appreciate who they are. And you allow them the opportunity to be themselves and not try to mold them in some kind of a fantasy image that we have in our minds, how they should be. Sometimes we try to do that, particularly with our, the people that are closest to us. So uh, being who you are and knowing who you are is the greatest gift that you can give yourself. It is the greatest gift that you can give yourself, because within that knowledge, there is power. There is power to attract. Don't ask me how it all works. All I know is that it works, because when you walk out in this sense of confidence and boldness and assertiveness, the world knows that you have shown up, and it continues to attract people. It's like I was talking to my girlfriend the other day, and she was talking about all kind of stuff. And I said, she said that, she didn't know how to behave in this kind of way. And she's shy and whatever. And I said, well, look, you've got to really get it together, because confidence is the new sexy. We were talking about some things, some personal things. And I says, yes, it's not about what you do or what you have. It is about who you are. And I share that with you so that you can be mindful of that as well. This whole social structure, as you that are familiar with my show and know the things that I talk about and the way I think, you know that I do have issues with all this social structures and tradition and the expectations of society and people, the expectations they have of us and how they want us to live performatively based on a script, based on rules. What it's set up for us to do is to be obedient, is to be compliant, it's to be submissive. And we are not created for that. We are created to rule. We are created with power. We are created to move forward, to progress, to grow. We are created for that. And a lot of you are saying that, again, you have this place where you are that it's hard for you to move forward. That's because you're mindful of all the structures, the social and cultural structures that are before you, ideologies that you've grown up with, and it's hard to get rid of them. But I'm telling you, if it no longer serves you, you've got to move forward and understand. See, that's one of the things that I realized. I realized that this whole social structure, is set up for us to be obedient. It's set up. Now, I am talking to adults, and that's you. And I know you understand what I mean. I obey the traffic lights. Why? Because it protects me and it protects others. So when I say obedience, I'm not talking about traffic lights. I'm not talking certain laws of the land. Certain things are set up to protect you and to protect others. Because, again, your freedom, you are free to do whatever you want to do, as long as you don't infringe on the freedom, the safety, and the well-being of others. You don't ever want to do anything that will hurt someone or in any way, shape, or form. So when I talk about obedience, you know what I mean. They want you to do this, they want you to act this way, they want you to behave this way, and that type of obedience that I am talking about. They want you to do this, you're supposed to do that, and this is what's expected of you, as a mother, as a wife, as a child, and all of that. And you sometimes don't get the opportunity to just be who you are. Some people are creative, some people are artistic. They just want to create. They want to be eccentric, avant-garde. They want to just do things the way. I remember this family. They had just moved into this house, and the daughter got her own room. By then, she was like becoming a teenager, and she wanted pictures of certain artists, Taylor Swift and Justin Bieber, all over her wall. And then the son, he wanted other stuff, you know Superman, and just these. And their parents had issues with that, because they were of a different mindset, and they kind of put the clamp on the kids, and so the kids could not be expressive. Ultimately, they wind up kind of compromising and doing some, and not all the wall paste with the I wouldn't say idols, but their favorite artists and things of that nature. Kids, they come out, because as they grow, they want to come out and be themselves. And if you clamp down on them, then they'll begin to to burst out. We call that rebellion, but it's not really rebellion. It's just that come that season of life, teenager, that they're discovering who they are, what they like, what they don't like, and they are coming out. They are coming out of being a child, being a kid, to being an adolescent. There are stages, and you will see things that are different, and you have to be prepared and stay relevant in order to understand better and have better communication with them. One of the things that when I coach and have parents that have issues like that, I always tell them to try to understand how your child thinks. How does, why do you think this way, or why do you need to find out the why, because it's not about teaching them what to think. That era is gone. Now it is about allowing them to think, to process, to assess, to rehearse. They need to think for themselves. And this way they become better, grounded individuals, people that can think for themselves, and not just think what we tell them to think. That's the whole thing. And that's, again, there goes society wanting to tell us what to think. And that's not good, because what happens is that it robs you of your ability to create and to think for yourself. So that's one of the things that I discovered about myself when, as I'm going through this journey, is that I realize that I have issues with traditional norms, conventional construct, things that no longer serve me. I get rid of them. I totally get rid of them. And in that, I discovered this whole concept of obedience. Obedience takes away your power. It clips your wings, and it's really it's a system of control. That's all it is. It is a system of control. So I realized that I don't have to submit to that. Why? Because I have a mind of my own. And when you realize that you have a mind of your own, you can think for yourself, process things for yourself. And what you think and process is just as valid as anyone else. Because the collective determines it that way, it doesn't mean that it's that way. It doesn't mean that it's valid today. We're in a total, we're in the 21st century. We are in the 21st century. This is 2025. So we have to remain relevant and grow with the times. So for those of you that think obedience is a virtue, obedience is not a virtue. Obedience was never meant to be about strength. It's to keep you in line. And I share that because a lot of you also talk about, this is expected and this is what we have to do. And this is the way we have done it all the time. And then there are those of you that are stuck in your religious ideology. And I've shared before, that's a tough one because uh, there's so many things that's been ingrained in us, uh, religious doctrine, that sometimes it's hard. It's hard to get rid of. And what I'm finding is that a lot of people are now going through a journey of a healing journey. And what's that? It's to heal them from abuse, from religious indoctrination, from the programming, from the conditioning, because it is so ingrained in their psychic that, the moment they try to go outside of that box, it's like they're pulled back. Why? By what? By guilt and judgment. They themselves criticize and judge themselves, and you feel guilty. And that is obedience is rooted in fear. It's fear. Because, as I said, a traffic light, I don't obey because the reason I obey the traffic light is because I don't want to hurt someone else, and I don't want to hurt myself. So when it's red, you stop. When it's yellow, you get ready to stop. You don't try to make it. I mean, you could, but then that's how sometimes people wind up with accidents. And when it's green, and then you pause for 5 seconds, the 5-second rule, because if you don't pause for 5 seconds, there's that person that's trying to make that yellow light and comes, charging across perpendicular and hits you. So you always want to allow that 5-second rule to protect yourself and others as well. It doesn't matter how many people are behind you. 5 seconds when it turns from yellow to green, and then you proceed. You obey it to protect yourself. But all the other rules and things that you must do this and you must do that and you must go here and you must go and you've got to think this way and you've got to, all of that is, it's not, it's a system of control. And once you understand that, see, I came to understand it. Once you understand that, it's you get to a place where it frees you up. And those of you that are battling with religious doctrine and so forth, you have to understand how that works. You have to free yourself from the fear, because organized religion is about fear. And once you understand that, a lot of you are saying, well, I'm not religious. I have a relationship with God. But then again, it's a relationship of fear. Most, you have shared, but it's fear. You are afraid of the consequences if you step out of line. You're afraid of the consequences. You're afraid of what will happen to you. You're afraid. But once you get rid of that afraid, what lies behind that is freedom. Freedom to be who you are. So if you're going to have a relationship with God, I'm not, this whole religious deconstruction, you don't have to get rid of your deity, whoever that is, whatever that is, whether it's creator, source, universe, God, Yahweh, Allah, Jehovah, whomever, whatever God you serve, you don't have to get rid of that. If that's because a lot of it is brings comfort. It's a protective mechanism, religion. So you don't have to get rid of that. You just have to understand how it works and the freedom that it should bring. You should have no fear. When I think of that, there's a story that is fascinating. We see it differently and we interpret it differently, and we have different perspective of this story. And it's the story of the prodigal son. Most of you understand this story, or you have heard about the prodigal son. And to me, it is fascinating and it's most liberating. And if you really dig into that with an open mind, trying to really get the truth about it, you'll see how fascinating it is. It will free you. It will free you. My take is this. Okay, so there's this man. This man is a He owns the world. He is a trillionaire, if you will. And he has two sons. And the youngest son goes to the father and said, Dad, I like to have my inheritance now. He's not he doesn't want to wait until his father dies or whatever. Why? Because why wait? And he is bold, and he goes boldly before his father and says, I would like to have my inheritance now. And the father, no problem. The father did not say, well, why, maybe, perhaps, woulda, coulda, shoulda. The father had no issues, no problem giving him his inheritance. Most parents would say, well, like, why do you need this for? Like, what are you going to do? Why is it, this is in the will for once I die. But the father had no questions. Willingly, he gave him all the riches that was due to him. This is the younger son. So one day he decides that he wants to go into the world. He decides he wants a different lifestyle. He decides, all the things that's within him, the curiosity and the sense of adventure, and, all the things that are inside of him, he wants a taste of the world. He wants a taste of the world other than what he was used to, the confinement of being in the compound of his dad's estate. He didn't want that anymore. He wanted to go out into the world and experience life on a totally different level. So the father gives him the money, and after a few days, he decides to leave. He packs his stuff up and he leaves, and he goes to a far land away. And, there he was for a few years and living it up and meeting people and having a good time and just living a life totally different from what he had while he was at his father's estate. He began to just live it up. I mean, just revel in life. And he was prodigal. You know what prodigal means? Prodigal is like living a lavish lifestyle. Prodigal means being so generous. A prodigal son is someone that's a spendthrift and just lavish, extravagant. That's what prodigal means. So he was the lavish spender. Oh, I love this story. So he is spending all, remember, he's not working. He's dealing with, just millions of dollars. So he had way plenty of time to spend all that money and enjoy himself. So he was spending, it wasn't being replenished. It's not like he went away and he invested in all that. No. He went away and he just wanted to live a different life, and he wanted to have a good time. So he was there for a long time, and then something happened in the land of the country where he was. There came a famine, and there was scarcity in the whole land. A famine, it was bad. And by then, he was out of money. He had already spent all his money. He had spent every penny, and he had nothing. And the famine came upon the nation, and he was there. And so he was hungry, and he was, reaching starvation. So he said to himself, let me go to an employer and find a job, any job where I can sustain myself, at least to eat. He didn't even have money to eat. So he goes to this organization, and they hired him. They hired him menial wages and doing something substandard, something way below what he would have done had he remained at his father's estate. He wouldn't even have to work, because at his father's estate they had servants. So he gets a job, a menial job, paying way below minimum wages, and he could hardly feed himself. This is the younger son, the prodigal son. Again, I love this story. So he said, you know what? This is, he like, wait a minute. I don't have to put up with this. I don't have to do this. He said, you know what? I'm gonna go back home and just ask my dad to give me a job. I'll just work for him. And who knows what he had planned, I can work, make some money, and then go back again, because he liked that lifestyle that he was living out in the world. It was fun. It wasn't like confined and stifling and suffocating. It wasn't any of that. It was like liberty and freedom and the ability to just be himself. He didn't have people around that would judge him, that would criticize him, and no. He could just be himself. So he decided he's going to go back home and ask his father for a job. So he starts walking. He could not even get a plane ticket, not a plane ticket, not a bus ticket, not a train ticket, none of that, not a ship, none of that. He's walking back home. So the father is on the terrace of one of the castles. This is my version, and obviously I am embellishing this story the way I perceive it. And you can read it also. I'm going to give you the reference once I come to an end. So the father is on the terrace of one of his castle, and he's just standing there looking out, whatever, and he sees from afar his son is coming back. So he pauses and he's like, wait a minute, that can't be. We're talking about a few years. He's been gone a few years. So they had no idea or thought of him ever coming back. So the father sees that that is his son. And he said, now wait a minute. Oh my gosh. So he rushes downstairs from the terrace and charges out of the castle, and he's running to meet his son. And the closer he gets, he realizes that it is indeed his son. What does he do? And of course, while he's running, we've got his bodyguards, or assistants, whatever you call them, butlers, that are following him to make sure that if something happens to him, that they're there to help him and so forth. So he is running to meet his son. He's running to meet his son. So when he meets his son had this whole statement, this whole plan to explain and ask and beg and all that, this whole rhetoric narrative that he was going to explain to his dad in order to ask him for a job and so forth. So the father reaches him, and the father bows and kisses him and hugs him. He didn't want to hear anything at all. The father was so, when I think in terms of worship, I know in organized religion, we are taught to worship because we are not born with an instinct to worship. And I remember when I was in religion, that's one of the things that I just couldn't figure out. I just couldn't figure out why was it important to worship. And I used to say, God, I don't want to worship. I don't want to worship. I do not want to worship. And much less go to heaven. If that's all that's going to happen, I don't want to go to heaven. I used to say that. That was my thing between God and myself. I was like, I do not want to worship. And come to find out, worship is not natural. Worship is not natural. It is not natural. It is not. We are taught that. We are indoctrinated. We are conditioned. We are programmed. We are brainwashed. We are conditioned to worship. But in this case, look what happened. The father is the one that bowed to the feet of his son when he came back. The father is the one that worshiped the son. And the son is there trying to, explain and justify and ask him whatever. The father didn't want to hear any of it. He did not want to hear any of it. All he knew is that his son came back and he was happy. And he said, to his attendants around him, this is the father. And the father said, he says, go and get the best robe, get me, a Louis Vuitton, Prada, Yves Saint Laurent, Hermes, get me the best Gucci bags, get me the best shoes, red bottom shoes for my son, get me the finest jewelry, get me all the best things for my son, because my son is back. Imagine that. It's the father that bows down to the son and worships because he's happy that he's back. Now, watch it. The son did not come back because he was repentant or remorseful or because of sanctity or anything of that. He just came back because he was hungry. He was starving. He didn't come back because he was like, no. I mean, he would have said, well, I left, but he came back because he was hungry. If he had enough money to pull him through the famine, who knows if he would have come back? He was having a good time. The son was having a good time. So the father gets all excited, and then he says to the other attendant, get the best cattle. I want filet mignon, I want ribeye, I want ribs, I want chops, I want pork loin, I want lobster, salmon, shrimp, get everything there is. I want caviar. We are going to have a feast. We are going to celebrate my son because he's come back to see me. Again, the son is not saying I'm coming back to stay. He's just come back because he was hungry. So the father says, we are going to have a celebration. He says, you get the best DJ, you book Taylor Swift, Justin Bieber, Beyonce, you book, the best DJ. We're going to have a celebration. You get me some comedians, get Stephen Colbert, get Kevin Hart, whatever. Again, we're going to have a bacchanal of time to celebrate the return of my son. Now, he did not ask his son, what did you do with the money? Where did you go? What did you do all these years while you were? He didn't ask any of that. All he was happy to know is that, and remember, the story says the son awakened. He came into his senses. He awakened. He's like, wait a minute, I know who I am. I don't have to stay here in this famine. I don't have to stay here hungry. I know who I am. I know who I am. And I know who my father is. And that's when he decided to go back. So anyway, so the father has this huge party. He's saying, I don't know what kind of a clothing he was wearing, perhaps, disheveled clothes that are old or whatever. But he said, you get the best robe, designer robe, you get the best shoes, you get the best jewelry, get me a nice ring, put a ring on his finger, and just dress him like royalty. Father-son relationship. So the attendants arrange all this, and we're not talking about like a party 2 days from now. He's saying, let's do it now. Let's get the party going now. You get all these folks, all the artists and the DJ, you get them right now. And we're going to have a party. All he was thinking is, my son came back. And again, he came back because he was hungry. He didn't come back because he was remorseful. He was just hungry. And in his mind, it could have been, I'm going back, work for my dad, make some money, or perhaps, my dad would give me another set of whatever. But the point is, it's not like he said, I'm coming back to stay, because he had enjoyed life outside of the palace. So they had this huge bacchanal. When I say bacchanal, it's like celebration, it's party, it's like a big shindig, and just huge. So later on during the evening, the older brother who was working at another estate with, helpers, help, and so forth. So he is making his way back to the main palace where the father is and where all this celebration is going on. All this thing is happening, and the younger son is, just there styled up in his nice new robe and fancy red bottom shoes and his nice ring and so forth. And so the older son says, "What is all this noise about? What is all this? What is all this celebration?" So one of the attendants said to him, to the older son, one of the attendants said, "Well, your brother, your brother came home, and your dad got so happy that he's set up this celebration to celebrate his return home. And so he's having a big party and whatever." The oldest son got so angry. He was livid. He said, "What?" He said, so he charges to his father. He said, "What's this?" And the father said, "What do you mean, what's this?" He said, "Your brothers come home and we are celebrating. Come on, join us." And he is so angry. He said, "You having a party for him that's left? He left. He disobeyed. He did not submit to your rules, laws, guidelines, regulations. He left. He took his inheritance and he left. And he comes back and you have a party for him? And I that have stayed here in total submission, total obedience to you, and you have never given me a party. You have never celebrated me." And his father said, but you were here. All of this is yours. You could have thrown a party. All of this is yours. You could throw a party and have and enjoy it, but you chose not to. And he walked away. He was bitter. He was resentful. He was jealous. He was envious. He was angry. He had all these emotions against his brother and against his father. And that's what happens. You see, obedience doesn't always mean, again, I said that obedience is a system of control. So it doesn't always mean that you will get the best end of the deal. It's a system of control. So he allowed himself, he made himself live in a controlled environment under his father. In my mind, I'm thinking it's not even the father that had him under control. He's, self-inflicted. He was bitter. And that's how you find that sometimes some of us, when we come out from under that whole thing of obedience and compliance and all of that, being submissive to rules and laws, and we go out and we learn the world and get to love and appreciate people and other cultures and other nationalities, other ethnicities, and all of that. We start to enjoy the diversity of our human collectiveness, the things that keep us connected, the things that makes us equal in terms of being a human being. We go out and we learn that. In the meantime, there are those that stays confined in the bubble, and they, in their minds, think obedience is what's going to bring reward. Not necessarily. Who got the reward? The younger son got the reward, the acknowledgement, the recognition. It's the younger son. And it wasn't even let's sit down and discuss and let's make sure that moving forward you don't do this anymore. You don't do it. No. The younger son had a sense of freedom. He awoke. He became woke. He awakened. He woke up, realizing who he was. This is what I wanted to do, and this is what I did. In the meantime, excuse me, the older son stayed under the confines of the palace, and in his own mind, submitted himself to obedience and compliance and submissiveness, and just there was no reward for him. Obviously, he thought a party was like a big deal, because if he didn't think a party was like a big deal, he would not have gotten upset because his dad had this grand celebration for the return of his son. If he didn't think it was a big deal, he would not have been so upset. But he was. And that's what happens to people that are, in your mind, you limit yourself. It's all your self-limiting belief. You limit yourself to things, to doctrines, to dogma, to rules, to laws, to regulation, and you don't figure things out for yourself. And you're living based on the collective tradition, conventional norms. What's the norm? What is everybody doing? What does everyone believes? It's a collective belief system that no longer serves you. And again, it's inherited, it's learned. It's not innate. It's just like I said, we're not born obedience. Look, that's why, they call 2-year-olds the terrible twos. Why? Because they are curious. They want to explore. They want to discover. They want to, to be adventurous. They ask these questions and questions and questions, and they just drive the parents crazy because they want to know. At that age, they're learning to talk, and they're trying to articulate words and tell you what they want and all of that. And that's what happens. We are created to be curious, not to be obedient. Like that, do this, do that, do this. You must believe this way. You must think this way. Instead of saying, what are your thoughts on this? What do you, and I don't care how small the child is. As long as they have a sense of understanding, talk to them that way. Where does this go? Where are you going to put this? What is this for? What is this? And allow the kid to articulate based on his own understanding. And as he grows with that, he would grow with a mind of his own, being able to think for himself the way he thinks, not to program his mind to think the way we think. So the older brother was mad as hell. He was so angry. He was so angry at his brother. In the meantime, he was jealous that his brother went outside of the palace to get a taste of what real life was, of what real life is. And he comes back, and the fact that the father said, let's do it up. We're gonna, we want new shoes, we want new clothing, we want new jewelry, and we want to suit him up in the best garments so that he would know that he is welcome home. Welcome home, my friend, mean coming to your senses of who you are. It doesn't mean that you come to your senses because you expect a reward. No, It's coming to your senses, being bold to taste what life is all about, to break out, to wake up, to be bold, to get to a place of confidence, to know who you are and not be intimidated or live in fear of judgment. And that's what some of you are experiencing when you talk about your journey of healing from, I guess, abuse, religious abuse. And some of you shared that you've had some situation being sexually assaulted and so forth by, it's just a mess. But that's real life. That is reality. But the point is, once you come to your senses, once you awaken, once you realize who you are and the power that you have to do things. I was sharing with someone the other day, and I said something like, I don't subscribe to the act of prayer. Prayer is not something that's part of our lives. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, no, because prayer really, prayer is really admitting lack. It's saying that you don't have. So you're begging, you're pleading, you're asking. And, you can break it down whatever works for you. But for me, that doesn't work for me. Because when I, in my mind, come to the knowledge that I've got power to create, then, if you have something that you're dealing with, you speak to that thing and you exercise that power, knowing that it must change, whether it's an ailment, whether it's a relationship, whether it's whatever it is. If you have control over it, now you cannot control other people's emotions and so forth. But if you have control over a situation in your life, then you have the power to exercise that power to make change in that situation. You have the power. So in my mind, I don't subscribe to prayer because, it keeps you begging and asking, and it just sets you up with a limited mindset that you don't have, that you lack, that you need it, that you're wanting. And then, you pray and you wait. And you're just living a life of hope and hope and hope and hope. And that is not the way it's set up to be. Because you have the power to create. So whether it's something physical or something mental or something psychological, social, emotional, feelings, whatever it is, you have the power to create. And once you know that and you start exercising that power, things will change, my friend. Things will change in your life. But you have to know that. And you can't be afraid. So even if you subscribe to a God, again, God, source, creator, Yahweh, Allah, Buddha, whomever, whichever God you subscribe to, it's not giving up your God. You could keep all that, but know who you are. And when you say you're in a relationship, let it be a relationship like the prodigal son. Like the prodigal son who was bold enough to turn around and say, now, wait a minute. I'm in a famine over here. My dad is a millionaire over here. Guess what? I'm going to go back. And, he was so confident. And that's the thing. He was so confident that, that his father would not reject him. He was so confident that his father, now, that he expected this big old celebration, I don't know that he did, but he was confident that his father would not reject him. So he said, let me go back. And then he's got all this whole speech ready to tell his dad, oh, I've sinned against you and blah, blah, whatever. And his dad didn't want to hear it. His dad, when I talk about worship, I'm not set up to worship. I was just thinking about my dad when growing up. When my dad bought me a bicycle, I wanted a bicycle so bad. And he bought me a bicycle. And I said, oh, God, I was surprised. And he's like, Dad, oh, my gosh. It was a blue bike, blue and white. And I was so happy. I was just, Dad, thank you. Now, that's all I said. Thanks, Dad. And that was it. Now, if I had said to my dad, oh, God, thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. He would say what, it's okay. You don't have to keep thanking me. He would have said, he would have wondered, what's wrong with me? Why am I getting into this whole thing, being so profusely grateful? I just said, oh, Dad, thank you. Oh, I love it. All my dad wanted to know is that I was happy with his choice of bike. And I was, because it was exactly the one that I wanted. But after I said thank you, that was it. He didn't expect me to come back and say, oh, Dad, I'm so happy. Oh, thank you, Dad. He would say, well, what's wrong with you? It's okay. It's okay. He would say, it's okay. So he would not have expected me to worship him because he bought me a bike, to worship, or yes, he knows that I'm happy but for him, showing gratitude was learning to ride a bike, a two-wheel bike, learning to ride a bike and using the bike every day or whenever, as much as I had a chance to. That's what made him happy, and that was it. So when I talk about worship, that's not something I like. But I did that when I was in religion. I did that. Why? Because that's how I was indoctrinated. That's how I was taught. That's how I was conditioned. That's how I was programmed. That's how I was brainwashed to tell me that is what is expected of the deity that I served at, during that whole journey of religion and so forth. That's what I was taught. I wasn't born that way. Up until my adulthood, I didn't know anything about worship, and especially, I was in Catholic school and all that. We don't do that. Not in the Catholic circle. That's not something we did. So, the moment that I walked away from religion, organized religion and so forth, and all that whole thing, it was like shackles off. Freedom, no more stifling situation. And again, I'm sharing you my experience. But then again, think about it. Your kids, when you buy your kids, how many times do you want your kids to come to you and to bow down, whatever? Now, when you think about the prodigal son, he came back with this whole prepared speech. His dad didn't want to hear anything about it. All his dad wanted to do was give him more and more and more. And in life, my friend, it is set up to give you more and more and more. I'm telling you, the universe, there is no lack in the universe. There is no lack. It's waiting for you to put a demand, to command whatever it is that you desire, whether it's healing, whether it's more resources, finances, relationships, a relationship, a spouse, a partner, whatever it is that you want, the universe is at your beck and call, waiting for you to put a demand on it. But for those of you that keep begging and pleading and interceding and all of that, and you see nothing happens, and sometimes it's like drip, 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 and then we get into this whole worship thing. My friend, learn how it works. Learn what works for you. Now, if you go to, and that story of the prodigal son is in the Bible. It's in Luke 15. Start from verse 11, I believe it is, 11 through 32. But it's Luke 15, starting from verse 11 through 32. And again, I embellish that story because that's what I do. That's how I perceive it. That is my perspective of that story. And you can, I remember even way back, I like that story because I always saw it a little differently. I always say, this the prodigal son, he just charged out there, and he wanted to learn about life and about things and about relationships and about who knows. I'm sure he learned about women and his manhood and all of that, and that's okay. That is totally okay because he was being his true, authentic self. In the meantime, the older brother is there stifling in his debauchery, with his limiting belief system. And for him, life became routine. Day after day after day after day, he did the same thing and just worked around the palace and did not break out to learn new things and adventures and new perspective on life. He didn't break out. He stayed doing the same thing time after time after day after day after day. That's why when you hear this big old party, he's like, wait a minute, what the hell is going on? And when the attendant said, well, your dad is throwing this big old party for your brother, and guess what? Taylor Swift is there. He's like, who's Taylor Swift? He said, Justin Bieber is there. And who is Justin Bieber? And he says, guess what? Beyonce is there. He had no idea who these folks were. And then there's the biggest DJ. We found this biggest Hollywood DJ, and then there's entertainment. There's Stephen Colbert, and then there's Kevin Hart, and then we have all these entertainment. There's food, there's caviar, there are drinks. There is a big party for your brother, and he was mad because there was no party for him. Imagine that. So, my friend, who is throwing your party? Who is throwing your party? Do you feel worthy of a party? Of a celebration? Throw yourself a celebration. Wake up. Wake up to who you are. It's the best gift you can give yourself. The gift of freedom. The gift of truth. The gift of no fear. So if you say you have a relationship with your deity, let it be one of fun. Let it be one of freedom. Let it be one where you can do the things that you want without fear of judgment. Because obedience doesn't promise reward. All of those things are just, again, it's a system of control. So get to the inner deep part of you to find truth. In this way, you can live and enjoy your life now unapologetically, without guilt, without criticism, without judgment, without being concerned what people think or say about you, but just live and enjoy the fullness of who you are. Get to know who you are and live your true, authentic self. Live organically and not performatively. I'm going to leave that with you, my friend, so that you can sup on that. Break it up a little bit and, bite-sized pieces, and figure out what works for you. And once you figure out what works for you, it'll work for you. But make sure it's a place where there's freedom. Every Thursday we meet right here, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if we can't meet here, then you see these icons over here? YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. You can pick it up 24/7. If you want to drop me a note, go to info@thecynthialinoxshow.com and drop me a note. And I am also a life coach. I'll get back with you. I offer a 30-minute complimentary session where we can chat and see if we align, so that I can walk alongside with you to get to your destination, the place that you want to get to. So, anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. Whatever you do this weekend, have a fantastic weekend. For you, those of you that are in the workforce, tomorrow is Friday, and then comes the weekend. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you next week, same time, same place. So, hasta la vista. Cow.